Yay! It's time for math with Mrs. Lehman. Welcome, everybody. This is Mrs. Lehman with my sixth period class. We're excited. Today we're going to learn how to convert decimals, fractions, and percents. So we are going to be working through lots of examples. I'll be pausing this video a lot so that I can work with the kids, but you should be able to get the basic gist of it based on the video, okay? So at the top of a blank page in our module book, page 83, specifically in ours, we are going to write a little title here, converting decimals I'm going to write fractions next. Fractions and percents. So the first example we're going to use is a pretty common fraction, right? So example 1, we're going to start with the fraction 1/2, okay? And we are going to find the decimal equivalent and the percent equivalent for the fraction 1/2. So we're just changing, we're converting between decimals, fractions, and percents. We're changing its format. All right, so if we want to find the decimal version of any fraction, here's the process you need to do. You take the top number, so in this case 1, your numerator, divided by the denominator. So 1 divided by 2. So when you divide that, even if you're using a calculator, just type in 1 divided by 2, and you're going to write 0.5. Okay, so we have a decimal, and we want to convert it to a percent. So what we're going to do that is move the decimal place. I have a little trick to tell you what to do, okay? So when I was in 6th or 7th grade, when we learned how to do this, we were told multiply it by 100, and if you're going from a percent to a decimal, divide by 100, which is all fine and good, but people are going to forget which one to do, right? So if you want your answer, right now we have a decimal, we want it to be a percent. Notice that we have an R in percent. That means we're going to move our decimal place always 2 spots to the right. Very good. And if we have a percent and we want to change it to a decimal with an L, we are going to move it 2 spots to the left. And we're using 2 spots consistently because we are either multiplying by 100 or dividing by 100. But to save time, we're just going to move the decimal place. Right? So this is going to take a tiny bit of work, right? So you have the number. We need to move this to get it to be a percent with an R. We're going to take our decimal place and move it 2 spots to the right. Right, so 1, 2. What do I do when there's no number there, Tori? Add a 0. Add a 0. So, who thinks that looks messy? I do. All right, that looks messy. So this is like math under construction. We're going to clean it up, okay? So we don't write whole numbers with a 0 in front of them. We're going to take that out and put 50%. So when you're doing these on your math examples in class or on your homework, and you need to do this, which you will need to do, I want to see those little loop-de-doos, but then rewrite it, okay? So let's do another example. Okay, so example 2, let's do 4/5. Okay, so somebody tell me, how do I convert this to a decimal? What do I do, Aiden?
Divide 4 by 5.
All right, go ahead and do that, please. What do we get for an answer when you divide 4 by 5? Stephanie? 0.8. Very good. So 0.8. Did everybody get that? Okay. And let's convert that now to a percent. So we're going to start like this. We're going to move it 2 spots to the right. Right. Correct. We're a 0 there. Again, you're not leaving it messy like that. So what percentage is that? 80. Very good. 80%. Okay. Let's see. Let's do another example. Let's do how about, I'm going to pause this because I need to get so now we're going to try 3 to 8 or 3/8. All right, so step number 1. Who can tell me step number 1? Cam?
Divide 3 by 8.
Very good. Raise your hand when you have that answer. 3 divided by 8, Malaya?
0.375.
Okay, so 375 thousandths, we would say. Did everybody get that? Yes. All right, good. Now, what do I need to do next? Yes, ma'am?
Move the decimal 2 spaces to the right.
Very good. 2 spaces to the right. We're converting a decimal to a percent. So we're going to do 0.375. Move it once. Move it twice. All right, again, that looks a little sloppy, so we're just going to rewrite it. 37.5%. What? Can we have a partial percent? Some people are saying no, some people are saying yes. In elementary school, they don't really tell you about these things, but they do exist, kids. All right, you can have partial percents. Just like when you were in elementary school, nobody told you that this line right here meant division, right? So I know I am changing some people's viewpoints of the world because they have no idea that this stuff was possible. But we can have a partial percent. Now, if the question were to ask you to round to the nearest whole percent, what would that round to? Would it be 37 or 38? Michael?
38.
Very good. This 5 would be enough to power up that 7 up to an 8, okay? Any questions thus far? Okay. Let's do one more thing here. The word percent, right, is broken into 2 parts, essentially. We have the per and we have cents. Per is a word that we use when we're talking about ratios and rates, right? And it means essentially for every, right? Malaya whispered that, for every. So for every, now cents, we think of cents in dollars, right? Dollars and cents. How many cents are in a dollar? Joey? 100. Okay. So what other words do we know that have the root cent in there somewhere? Brianna?
Scented candle. Scented candle.
Nope, not cent. That's spelled differently. That's S-C-E-N-T.
Oh.
That's like a smell. Just C-N-T. I mean, I guess it does have the C. I cannot spell. Well, I guess it does have the C-E-N-T in there, but that's a different meaning when we're talking about smelling things. Yes. Percent. Okay. So, have you guys heard of a century? How many years does a century make up? Okay. How about a centipede? Yeah, 100 little legs, right? What about a centimeter? How many centimeters in a meter? You think that's a coincidence? No. What does the root cent mean? 100. So Malaya said per means the same thing as for every, right? So for every 100. So we could say 1 out of 2 students buy their lunch. That's 50% of the students. So if we scale that up to 50 out of 100, right, we'd say it's 50%. Maybe 4 out of 5 of my shirts are gray. Doesn't mean I have 100 shirts, but it does mean that 80% of them are gray if I were to scale that up to 100. Does that make sense? So out of 100. It will be easy, hopefully. All right, so we are going to actually skip around the module a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't throw you off too much. We're going to go to exercise 4 on page 75. And on page 75, we have a conversion table here. We're going from percentages to decimals, fractions, ratios, and then we're going to draw a model. Okay? We're not going to draw Tyra Banks. We're going to draw a math model, just to clarify. Alrighty? So, if we have 6%, alright? So, oops, that was fun. Undo. If we, excuse me, have 6%. The decimal point is right there, right? When we start with that number, we don't typically write those in whole numbers. So I need to do something to get this to be a decimal, right, instead of a percent. So, first of all, how many spots do I move it? 2, all right. Which direction, right or left? I'm hearing both answers. Think about it. We want to turn it to a decimal. Left. Yep, so you think about what you want it to be. You want it to be a decimal with the L. All right, so we're going to put the, why is that doing that? Oh, because I'm writing with my elbow. Okay, so it's going to be 0.06. Again, just clean it up when you rewrite it. Any questions on that? What about a fraction? What would we write as a fraction? Okay, question.
How do you know to go left or right?
Because the trick is that I taught you is the R in percent. So you think about what you want it to be. You want a decimal to become a percent with an R, move it to the right. You have a percent, you want to make it a decimal with an L, move it to the left. Got it? Okay, so we have 0.06. And as a fraction, first of all, how would you read this number technically in math? We wouldn't say 0.06. We would say something a little more technical. What would that be, Nadia?
0 and 600.
600. So if Nadia said 600ths, some people would write down 0.06 as a decimal, and then some of us would go, no, she said 600ths, like that, right? Okay? So the ratio they already did for us, 6 out of 100. I'm going to skip the model for time's sake because we'd have to draw a 10 by 10 grid and fill in 6 of the boxes, right? 6%, not a very large percent out of 100. Let's look at 60% though. Oh, before we move on actually, now this is one example of a fraction that is worth 0.06. Okay? Can anyone come up with another equivalent fraction? Jacob.
12 out of 200.
Okay, so Jacob chose to scale up. Now let's see if Jacob is yanking our chain. Oops, out of 200. So 12 out of 200. How could we see if this has the same value? What could we do to test that?
200 divided by 12?
Wrong direction.
Oh, 12 divided by 200.
Yep, take the top divided by the bottom. Go ahead on your calculators right now. Take 12 divided by 200. What do you get, Nadia?
0.06.
Very good. So Jacob's correct. Can anyone scale 6 over 100 down? Michael.
3 over 50.
Very good. Let's see if Michael is telling us tails. So take 3 and divide it by 50. Let's see. Cam goes, yes. I'm getting a thumbs up from Cassie. Is it the same? Yes, it is. So we know that these are all equivalent, right? So don't think that the only fraction that's going to have a value of 6% is 6 out of 100. It could be 12 out of 200, 3 out of 50, and there's an infinite number of examples because we could scale that up forever, okay? Let's look at 60% now. Let's change it to a decimal. So we're starting with this, right? We want to change it to a decimal. So Brianna, which direction? Left, very good. So 2 spots to the left. What do I need to do? put a 0 in front, right? Because it's not over 1, so 0 and 6/10. Now, do I need to put the 0 after that? No. Could I put the 0 after that? Yes. Right? So the 0 is after the last digit, 1 or greater. To the right, you don't need to put on, but you could put on, okay? So we have 6/10 there. I just kind of gave the next part away. I said 6/10, right? What do you think our fraction is going to look like? Yeah, 6/10. Very good. All right. And as a ratio, we could write what? 6, and then we're going to use a colon to represent our ratio. So we would read it 6/10. But in math symbols, that's what it looks like. Okay, can anyone scale that down perhaps? So instead of 6/10, we might see what, Joey? 3/5. Very good. So let's test it out. Take your calculator. Take 3, divide it by 5. Blaze is giving me 2 thumbs up. All right. Did you guys get 0.6? Yes. Very good. All right. So we could also say that an equivalent ratio is 3 to 5. Another example we want to try? Stephanie? 12/20ths, okay? Let's see if Stephanie's right. Take 12 divided by 20. You doing this, Jonathan? 12 divided by 20. I'm getting thumbs up. Aiden, what do you get?
0.6.
0.6. Very good. So we can draw this model pretty easily. Let's do the 3 out of 5, okay? All right, so I'm pretending this is a candy bar right now because I'm hungry. All right, so we have 5 sections. If I ate 60% of it, how many of those sections did I eat? Cameron? 60% is what out of 5? 6 out of 10, but out of 5 it would be 1. No? Look at what we already did. Okay, so all of these are equivalent across here. So we have 60%, that's the same as 0.6, 0.6, or we could say 6/10, 3/5, 12/20. 6 to 10, 3 out of 5. So we have 5 sections. If we want to represent 60%, we would fill in how many? 3. Very good, 3. So here's 1, here's 2, here is 3. Okay, the next one we have is 600%. So again, some kids feel uneasy when they see a percent greater than 100 because we don't deal with those a lot, but the same rules apply. So we have 600, right? The decimal point is there even though you don't see it. And we need to turn this into a decimal, so we're going to move it 2 spots to the left. Very good. So that's going to become 6. Now, do I have to write 0.00? Nope. All right, so how do I write a whole number like 6 as a fraction? This is a 5th grade skill. Hopefully you remember. Cam wants to give it a try.
6/6.
A lot of kids have said 6/6, but that's a 1-to-1 ratio. That'd be 100%.
6 at 6 point.
No. Caleb?
6/1.
Very good, yeah. So in case you didn't know that, anytime you want to write a whole number as a fraction because you need it to be in fraction form, okay, you're going to write that whole number over 1. If we were to do 6/6, that would divide and give you 1, right? And our number isn't 1, it's 6. We want it to be 6/1. Okay, so the ratio version of this would be 6-to-1. And then as the model, instead of drawing a part of a whole, right, we have 6 whole amounts. So we're just going to draw 6 units separately. And the last example before I pass out your homework is difficult to see in your actual module books, but spoiler alert here, there are 7 out of 10 shaded, so we're going to fill that in the fraction section. In your workbooks, it's almost impossible to differentiate those units. So, 7 out of 10. So, 7 over 10. How would you read that? 7 what? Tenths. Very good. So when we write it as a decimal, we can write 0.7, all right? As a percentage, what would that be? So we have 0.7. We want to make it a percent with an R, so we move it 2 spots to the right. Correct. So we're going to put a 0 there, and the percent, we're going to rewrite it neatly. So that would be 70%. And then as a ratio, what would my ratio look like? Michael?
7 to 10.
Yep, 7 to 10. We could come up with bigger ones, right? We could say 14 to 20. And we could keep going up and up, okay? All right, I am going to end this video and pass out the homework to the kids. We will do more fractions, percents, and decimals in a later lesson. I'd like to thank everybody for liking and subscribing. Have a great day, everybody.